Iran appears to have delivered what analysts describe as a double blow against key United States assets in the Middle East as the conflict that erupted in late February continues to intensify across the region. The latest developments came after a missile strike hit the U.S. embassy compound in Iraq's capital, Baghdad, while separate Iranian attacks reportedly damaged several American refueling aircraft stationed in Saudi Arabia. These incidents underline the growing reach of the war and highlight how rapidly the confrontation between Washington and Tehran has expanded beyond isolated military exchanges. The strike in Baghdad occurred on March 14 when a projectile hit inside the U.S. embassy compound located in the Iraqi capital's heavily fortified green zone. Iraqi security officials confirmed that the missile landed within the diplomatic complex, sending smoke rising above one of the most protected districts in the country. For many observers, the attack represents a significant escalation because the U.S. embassy in Baghdad is not only the largest American diplomatic mission in the world, but also a powerful symbol of Washington's presence and influence in Iraq. The compound is protected by multiple layers of security, including perimeter defenses and air defense systems designed to intercept incoming threats. According to Iraqi security sources, the missile strike penetrated these defenses and landed within the compound itself. The impact reportedly struck near or on a helipad located inside the embassy complex, demonstrating that the projectile reached deep into the secure diplomatic facility. An Iraqi security official described the incident in stark terms, emphasizing how the missile breached the highly protected zone. The projectile landed within the embassy's boundaries in the Green Zone, the heavily fortified district in central Baghdad that houses Iraqi government institutions and foreign embassies. Eyewitness videos quickly circulated across social media platforms showing dramatic scenes from the aftermath of the strike. Thick, dark smoke could be seen rising above the embassy complex, while flames appeared to burn on parts of the structure. The footage provided immediate visual confirmation that the attack had caused visible damage and triggered emergency response efforts within the compound. In several videos, embassy personnel and security staff were later seen clearing debris from the roof of the building. Observers noted that portions of the upper section of the embassy appeared damaged or distorted following the impact. This suggested that the missile strike may have struck the building directly or exploded very close to it. Reports citing Iraqi security sources indicated that the strike may have damaged part of the embassy's air defense infrastructure. If confirmed, this would suggest the attack may have been aimed not only at the building itself, but also at weakening the protective systems designed to defend the compound against incoming threats. Such an outcome would represent a serious breach of security in one of the most sensitive diplomatic locations in the Middle East. The Green Zone in Baghdad is known for its tight security. It houses not only the U.S. embassy, but also Iraqi government institutions, foreign diplomatic missions, and several military facilities. Entry into the district is heavily restricted with multiple checkpoints and layers of surveillance designed to prevent attacks. Despite those precautions, the missile strike demonstrated that the ongoing war has dramatically increased the risk facing U.S. personnel and infrastructure in Iraq. This was not the first incident involving threats to the American embassy during the current conflict. Earlier attacks and protests linked to Iran-aligned groups had already raised tensions around the Green Zone, forcing Iraqi authorities to increase security in the area. The March 14 strike, however, appears to be one of the most direct and damaging incidents targeting the diplomatic compound since the war began. While Baghdad was dealing with the fallout from the embassy strike, reports emerged of another major development elsewhere in the region. According to a report by the Wall Street Journal, cited by several outlets, Iranian missile strikes also targeted Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, one of the most important military facilities used by U.S. forces in the Gulf. The base hosts American aircraft involved in regional operations, including KC-135 Stratotanker refueling planes. These aircraft play a crucial role in U.S. military strategy because they allow fighter jets and bombers to refuel midair, extending their operational range and endurance. Without such tankers, many long-distance air missions would be significantly more difficult to sustain. The reports indicated that at least 5 U.S. refueling aircraft were damaged during the missile attack at Prince Sultan Air Base. While the aircraft were not destroyed, officials said they sustained damage while parked on the ground at the base. Repair work is reportedly underway, and no casualties were reported in connection with the strike. Even so, the incident raised concerns among military analysts about the vulnerability of logistical support assets in modern warfare. Refueling tankers are often considered high-value targets because they support multiple combat aircraft at once. Disrupting tanker operations could potentially limit the effectiveness of large-scale air campaigns. The Saudi airbase incident, therefore, represents more than just damage to a few aircraft. It demonstrates Iran's ability to threaten key elements of American military infrastructure in the region. U.S. President Donald Trump addressed the reports about the tanker strike shortly afterward. He suggested that the damage to the aircraft may have been less severe than initially reported. Most planes targeted in the attack suffered virtually no damage. Donald Trump, President of the United States. Despite that reassurance, the attack still highlights how the conflict is spreading geographically and strategically. The developments in Saudi Arabia also came amid continued attention on another tragic incident involving American military aviation. Earlier in the week, a U.S. KC-135 refueling aircraft crashed in western Iraq during ongoing operations connected to the conflict. The crash occurred during a mid-air refueling mission involving two tanker aircraft. All 6 crew members aboard the aircraft that crashed were killed in the incident. The second plane involved in the collision managed to land safely, despite sustaining structural damage. The loss of the aircraft added to the growing list of operational setbacks facing the United States since the war began on February 28. With the crash included, the number of publicly acknowledged U.S. military aircraft lost during the conflict has risen to 4. Although some anti-U.S. militant groups attempted to claim responsibility for the crash, American officials said the accident was not caused by hostile fire. Instead, it appears to have resulted from a mid-air collision during wartime operations. Even so, the tragedy has underscored the risks facing military personnel as the conflict intensifies across multiple theaters. The broader war between Iran and the United States has expanded rapidly over the past several weeks. Military operations and retaliatory strikes have taken place across Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and several Gulf states. Iran has also issued warnings suggesting that additional targets across the region could come under attack if the conflict continues to escalate. Meanwhile, U.S. forces and their allies have conducted strikes against Iranian military infrastructure, including bases and strategic facilities connected to Tehran's military capabilities. The cycle of attack and retaliation has created an increasingly volatile situation across the Middle East. Energy markets, shipping routes, and regional security arrangements are all being affected by the rising tensions. Analysts warn that attacks on diplomatic compounds and military infrastructure could trigger further escalation if retaliatory actions intensify. The Baghdad embassy strike illustrates how symbolic targets can quickly become flashpoints in larger geopolitical confrontations. Embassies represent not only diplomatic presence, but also national prestige and influence abroad. When such sites are attacked, governments often face pressure to respond forcefully. For Iraq, the situation presents a particularly delicate challenge. The country hosts U.S. troops and diplomatic missions while also maintaining complex political ties with Iran and Iran-aligned groups operating within its borders. Iraqi leaders have repeatedly emphasized that they do not want their territory to become a battleground for international conflicts. Yet the latest attacks show how difficult that goal has become as the regional war expands. Security around the Green Zone and other strategic areas in Baghdad has been tightened in response to the embassy strike. At the same time, American military bases across the Gulf have reportedly increased alert levels amid fears of additional missile or drone attacks. For now, the images of smoke rising above the U.S. embassy in Baghdad stand as one of the most powerful visual symbols of the conflict's latest escalation. Combined with the missile damage to American aircraft in Saudi Arabia and the earlier crash of a U.S. refueling tanker, the events of March 14 underscore how rapidly the war is evolving. Whether these incidents lead to further retaliation or renewed diplomatic efforts remains uncertain.
But one thing is clear. The conflict between Iran and the United States has entered a far more dangerous phase, with American diplomatic and military assets increasingly becoming targets across the Middle East.